With St. Gregory's University announcing it'll be closing its doors at the end of the semester, alumni and students alike say it's more than just losing a university.
May our heritage be that we stood for right.
A peaceful protest outside of Benedictine Hall on Monday after St. Gregory's University announced it will shut down after this semester.
You know, at the end of our semester, this is like we all go our separate ways.
I don't even know where I'm going if I can continue my sports career.
Friendships, athletic careers, and academic pursuits all hang in the balance. And while teach-out programs are being finalized through the Higher Learning Commission with other universities, SGU students are still left with big problems. Are you having trouble getting people to take your hours and counting them towards your degree?
Yes, other than the schools that are in the teach-out.
And you don't like any of those?
I don't know if I can afford them.
But despite the dismal circumstances, some alumni aren't giving up just yet. Pat Keithley says she is making an effort to raise money for the university after her husband, a former SGU professor, died last year, and hopes other alumni will do the same.
I want to challenge other alumni to give what they can and try to hold it together. We've got a month, and I'm hoping it'll work.
University President Michael Scaperlanda did make an appearance at the protest to talk to students and faculty, but Graduate Program Chair Vicki Jean says she's already accepted the university's fate.
I mean, we already know what's done is done, and there's not much that we can do to bring things back, but we are grieving, and we're not here to really protest. We're just here to share, you know, the value of our program, the loss that we have as a community, not just with this master's program, but the wider community.
In Shawnee, I'm Jason Berger, OBU TV News. An uncharacteristic October tornado leaves the town of Seminole still recovering. Structures damaged and broken tree limbs all over. This is how an EF1 tornado left Seminole on Saturday.
When the tornado went off, we obviously had some significant events that occurred from it.
Police Chief David Hansen says even though the tornado was small, it still caused some big problems.
Throughout town, we had buildings that had some pretty good damage to them, some roofs damaged.
In fact, this dismantled roof does not even belong to the house next to it, and thankfully, all 5 inhabitants of the house were not home when the storm hit. The Seminole Police Department and Fire Department say they responded to an estimated 100 calls after the tornado dropped, and some residents needed immediate assistance.
We had one family that was trapped in their storm cellar. A tree had fallen across the storm cellar. And when we arrived on scene, we found that there was also some power lines that were across the cellar. Thank God we really didn't have any serious injuries, some minor injuries, but nothing serious.
Although the storm was considered small in terms of tornadoes, it didn't stop work crews from making a big impact.
Street department came out, were removing trees right away. I mean, they were, worked all night, all through the night. Like I say, we have a phenomenal street department, really dedicated people.
And the people are what have made the recovery efforts so effective. The National Weather Service says the last time Oklahoma experienced tornadic activity in the fall season was back in 2014. And here in Seminole, the recovery efforts are only expected to go into next week. Reporting near the Municipal Building, I'm Jason Berger, OBU TV News. The city of Shawnee still in shock after the death of a 2-year-old toddler. And according to this affidavit of probable cause in the Shawnee Police Department, it was no accident. A 2-year-old girl dead and 2 adults in custody on criminal complaints of first-degree murder.
There's no way that this occurred by an accidental fall. There's no way this occurred by the child doing it to herself.
Detective Jason Crouch says that 2-year-old Jamie Murdoch was taken to St. Anthony's Shawnee Hospital for injuries resulting in bleeding and swelling of the brain. She was then transferred to the OU Medical Center in Oklahoma City, where she was pronounced dead.
She had a bruise on her abdomen and her liver. And there was also some bruising on her face.
Police arrested 22-year-old Whitney Breslin and her boyfriend Cash Graham on September 5th after Jamie died just 3 days earlier. The affidavit for probable cause also indicates that Jamie tested positive for having marijuana in her system, a fact that Detective Crouch says cannot happen by chance.
You don't test positive for marijuana from secondhand smoke. It had to occur from some kind of ingestion.
According to sources at the Shawnee News-Star, a Department of Human Services case involving the child was filed on August 4th, but no negative history of Breslin or Graham seems to exist.
Neither one of them have anything criminal. We can't find anybody to really speak ill of them.
But according to Human Services Communications Manager Casey White, drug involvement in DHS cases is normal in Oklahoma.
There were 7,310 instances that were related to substance abuse, and that accounts for 86.53%, so almost 87% of the child abuse numbers that we have.
And we have been told that Whitney Breslin and Cash Graham have been formally charged with murder in the first degree, and they'll remain right here in the Pottawatomie County Public Safety Center until their trial on November 21st. Reporting from Acme Road and Highway 177, I'm Jason Berger, OBU TV News. It's a cold case that's been open since September of 1984.
There's no physical evidence, there's no crime scene, there's no blood anywhere.
And has the city of Shawnee still wondering what happened. The case of Sandy Ray is the most infamous unsolved case in the town and still has investigators searching for answers. Detective Ronnie Wilson sets the scene.
The last place she was seen was at the bowling alley over on Harrison Street. She was last seen there around 7, 8 o'clock. She's supposed to get a ride to a party. Somebody was coming to pick her up and she was waiting outside, and that's the last anybody's seen her.
Several theories that all point to murder speculate Sandy's disappearance happened locally. One says that she was buried under an old pawn shop. Another theory says her body was disposed of at Shawnee Twin Lakes. A third theory points to a stretch of train tracks as a burial site, and another one even claims local attorneys and businessmen wanted her dead after drug-related parties at area hotels. But according to Detective Wilson, none of those theories hold up.
So there's a lot of talk and a lot of rumors. It's not this big conspiracy theories that a lot of people have.
Detective Wilson noted that Sandy was in fact living with a friend of hers on 7th Street at the time and says that her disappearance has a simple explanation.
We believe what happened is that somebody that she knew did come and pick her up, and somehow or another they got into an argument and that she was probably killed and then her body disposed of and just hasn't been discovered.
Ever since Sandy Ray's disappearance in 1984, over 3 decades of information has accumulated, and it's hard to fit all that into one story. That's why OBU TV News will continue to cover this case and report any updates or new information that we find. Reporting near the police station, I'm Jason Berger, OBU TV News. A bizarre situation on Friday after witnesses say police cuffed a man wielding an axe near Dorothy and Ridgewood Street.
I felt like at any time he could have snapped. The way he was talking, screaming, yelling, and yielding the axe, it was like...
These two witnesses say they were literally installing security cameras on a customer's house when the man walked by them with the axe, but the encounter was anything but casual.
But it went on for like 15 minutes, him threatening us and, threatening the ladies here.
He was swinging the axe. Of course, I felt uncomfortable, but he was swinging the axe and said he'd come down here and take care of us.
And those witnesses say the man armed with the axe came right through this property right here and then continued on down the street. But this wild story doesn't stop there. The unidentified man was taken into police custody, but roughly 20 minutes later he was released right back to his own house. We later learned that the two witnesses we spoke to did not press charges and that the man was walking back home from his landscaping job. No information exists regarding if the man was ticketed or given any penalty. And we did try to reach out to Michael Bird, who was installing those security cameras at the time, to see if he captured any footage of the man walking across the property with the axe, but we're told those cameras were not recording at the time. Reporting near Dorothy and Ridgewood, I'm Jason Berger, OBU TV News.
In Dixieland I'll take my stand, to live and die in Dixie.
This last Saturday, members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans organization gathered at Woodland Veterans Park to honor their ancestors who fought during the Civil War.
I'm out here to honor my ancestors and all these people's ancestors too, and to basically get people to learn their history.
It was for the sake of preserving history that some of the supporters made an appearance at the event.
Because to erase the Confederate heritage is also to erase the heritage of my own family as well.
Despite controversy over the organization's use of the Confederate flag, supporters say they defend it for pride, not hate.
It doesn't stand for race. So the Confederate flag stands for, again, freedom of oppression of the government. It stands for Southern heritage. It stands for the Confederate veterans who are U.S. veterans. They're the same kind of veterans as Union veterans. They were granted that.
As expected, despite the Sons' intentions, protesters were skeptical of the group's cause.
It's okay to respect your ancestors and not share in their ideals, right? This is 2017. We need to move past this, and to call it your heritage, especially in a state that wasn't a state at the time of this war, is just nonsense. It's absurd.
Some protesters seem to feel more strongly than others.
what this is. It is racism. They can disguise it and they can say it's something else, but in the end, all this is simple, plain racism.
Although some heated arguments did break out, some witnesses to the event didn't think either side was completely understood.
It seems like these guys are trying to get a point across as to what the flag represents to them, and I think it's kind of misconstrued views on both sides.
I think there's a lot of extremes on both sides. I think there's sort of a skew on information and truth.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans state they do not condone the use of their logo or the Confederate flag as symbols of hate, and also denounced racism, white supremacy, and the actions of the Ku Klux Klan. However, it was obvious that people felt the need to speak out for their beliefs. I'm Jason Berger with Shawnee News 30.